Welcome, everyone, to Two Guys in Hockey Talk. My name is Pawel the CAT, your hockey insider, with my wonderful co-host, Evan Renaerts. Evan, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, guys. I this time your entrance, I heard you welcome every gun. So I'm just wondering, was there been some playoff officiating that you feel like everything's under the gun?
I
Maybe in
believe so.
perspective.
We're going to get into this, but I think it's gone off with a blast, whether for the right reason or the wrong reasons. But guys, we are here at season 6, episode 33 at Two Guys and Hockey Talk. We are live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. We appreciate you taking the evening to tune in and talk with us all things hockey. We've got a jam-packed show, Evan. We're going to get to it. But before we do, as we've often done here on the show, do you have your beverage? Because I have mine.
I do have my beverage. It's a Rockstar beverage. Sponsored by? No, I wish. Okay, I'll just have it anyway.
Cheers to you all out there, wherever you're tuning in. Let's get to it. We got a jam-packed show tonight because there's a lot going on, Evan. And before we get to our postseason review of some of the games, because there's been some interesting storylines that have been happening, there's quite a bit of news happening for a lot of the other teams. Speaking of which, quickly of note, the Buffalo Sabres have announced today that they have hired Eric Stahl, a former player, to be essentially a special assistant to the general manager for Kevyn Adams. So it sounds like for now, Kevyn Adams is sticking around, and the Pegula family believes that he is going to take this team on the right course, even though they didn't make the playoffs. And he's going to continue to maybe learn how to do the management side of things and potentially get himself into a role one day as an assistant GM and maybe even a GM. You know, he was a great player while he was on the ice. You know, he's one of the 3 members of the Triple Gold Club, winning a Stanley Cup, Olympic Gold, and IHF Championship. He's got 455 goals, 608 assists, and played 1,365 games. So the guy knows hockey. You know, the Stahl brothers, pretty electric, dynamic family hockey. Quick thoughts on this.
I think that this is actually a hire I will support. Jeffrey Odd, I know that you are a massive Sabres fan. I know we tried to get you on the show a few times. Anyway, I believe, will like this. I haven't saw his comments yet. I think Eric coming in, like you said, he's got a hockey mind. It's a hockey family. It's like huttering. It's like hiring the Sutter brothers. That's what I was uttering, because the Sutter. But yeah, I like this move. I think this is a good move. The rumor or the belief is that he will move in eventually. They hope into the GM role. So right now they come in, get him started over the next year or two, and what could happen from there. It just shows, though, the Pegulas, the owners have a lot of trust in right now in Adams and what they're doing with this franchise. I guess you can't just blow it all up. They've been blowing it up for like 14 years. And so at some point, you just got to put your head to the grind, right? Shoulders to the grind and put your head forward. If you're going to fall forward.
Excellent. And another team that didn't make the playoffs, but they're more earlier in their rebuild, is the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, I know you wanted to talk about David Carlo, who interviewed for that NHL position. And there was also something with the Ducks GM happening there. Do you want to kind of talk about what's going on in the world of Chicagoland?
Yeah. Guys, make sure you follow last year's guest, Tab Bramford, with Bleacher Report. He's got some great stuff. But one of the things that I've kind of learned behind the scenes about David Carl, we all heard that he wasn't accepting the position. There was talk about he was given an offer, and that offer was with a team with a lot of prospects. So there was discussions with Verbeek in the Ducks, but that was not the prospects that were being talked about. It was Chicago. It wasn't that Chicago was bad. So please, guys, get off your bandwagons when you're trying to you diss the Blackhawks because of things that have happened in the past. Nothing to do with that. In fact, he had many other options. Many people wanted to look at him. He wanted to stay in Colorado. He wanted to be with his family. It was a bit, and we kind of talked about this on the show. It was a bit of, let's see how much money's out there potentially. But remember, in the NCAA with all your alumni, essentially, there's millions of dollars for a coach, and he landed in that. So we did talk about that on the show, and just as we discussed and we expected. By the way, follow us. You can follow me at REV on X and at hockey_2 for my co-host here. So you can follow Rev and the Cat. But just as expected, he was going to sign a good deal, and it was a sweet deal. The exact details I haven't learned unless something's came out today. I've been quite busy on some other stuff trying to follow up on in outside. We'll talk about around the rink, but a 5-year deal paying millions of dollars. So this works out really good. I do have a theory. This is like totally speculation. I wonder if he'd like to be the next coach and stay right in Colorado with Denver and actually become the next coach should that happen in a year or 2 years. I thought this could be potentially where he hangs on to the NCAA and sees if after the playoffs they decided to let go of their coach. But I think that they had too many injuries this year. They were dealing with too much. I think Joe's going to make sure it goes another season at least here before he starts shaking things around. And the other thing, can I just mention, the Blackhawks, we'll talk about the draft situation a bit. They're not drafting first overall. They're not getting their suspected second overall. So they're going to have a pick. We know the consensus top 3 essentially, and that's consensus, meaning most ranking systems, are putting Schaefer, Misa, and Higgins all in that category. Here's the good news if you're a Hawks fan. You still have all 3 of those, plus you have Porter and Martone to pick from. So either way, you don't have to worry. I know Blackhawks fans, and you can chime in here, Pavel. They are a smaller team, the Blackhawks. There's talk that they don't need another center in Higgins. But, dude, the way that guy can skate and that guy can move, as we saw with guys like Johnny Gaudreau, Martin St. Louis, Theron Fleury in years past, don't mess around, or even Cole Caulfield, right? Don't mess around and go. I believe go for the best player available. And that likely at third will be, I think, James Higgins. But we'll talk about that a little bit later when we get to the Islanders.
100%. It will be interesting to see because you definitely want to bolster up, that front offense that you have with Connor Bedard and some of the other players. And of course, the year didn't go as well as planned for Chicago, but I think they are going to want either a center or a winger for Bedard to play with him. But somebody who can probably switch both positions, right? You look at those players that can play both wing and center in order for them to be effective, right? So you can load them up on the line if need to.
True.
And speaking of prospects, I know you love it. And we had the draft on Monday. The New York Islanders.
Can I correct that? That? We had the draft lottery.
Sorry. The draft lottery we had on Monday. And of course, the Islanders jump up in the stands to go first overall. Great for the franchise. They've had previous number ones, including more recently John Tavares, who now is in Toronto. And I know it didn't pan out there. But before we get to potentially that whole situation, and even Utah jumping up, where you can definitely tell that there's been some movement, which is great. It's kind of what you want to see in the lottery. I wanted your thoughts, Evan, about the GM position, because now this looks like a lucrative position, not only to come in with a team that's just on the cusp of making the playoffs. You've got some great pieces there, including, you got Matt Barzal, you got Noah Dobson, who's young and coming. Whether you trade him or not, that's something on the table. You got Pelech and Pollock there. You've got your goaltending for the future for the next few years at least. What does this mean for the GM position? You've been hearing some names, correct?
We're talking with the Islanders, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, sorry, I was just pulling up a couple texts here. Yes, so and I believe that you've just mentioned them as well in some of your tweets, and you've been posting them. By the way, follow us, guys, on Facebook if you want to get a lot of the information and or on X. We try our best to highlight everything around hockey. So as you mentioned, Holland and Bergeron are being considered. Now that search could include, now you guys get ready for this, Kate Madigan. She is an assistant general manager of the New Jersey Devils, who will, by the way, interview for this position. This is interesting. She's been given permission, from the Devils to go interview for this position. I don't think she's going to get it. I don't think that's going to be the plan, but that could be very interesting because who knows on how long until someone like Kate, I think she will be the general manager, female general manager in the NHL. And then Jessica Simpson's only a matter of time before she probably will be the first coach. Now, the other candidates, believe it or not, whether you like it or not, if you're an Islanders fan, Rob Blake. Yep, Rob Blake, who just, we haven't even got to that information, but Rob Blake is available, and Matthew Darche. So these are the names that are being tossed. The names that I'm hearing. So again, I know Madigan for sure has an interview. We know that Holland has an interview. Okay. But Rob Blake, highly likely. I'm not sure on Darche. There's just a lot of talk around that. And of course, we know Holland. So the Bergeron, unless something you've heard recently this afternoon, I hear that there's intent. But there's also interest for Bergeron in other places also.
Interesting. Yeah. And he's stepping away as a special advisor role in LA. They've been eliminated. I know that there's been rumblings about what LA is going to do, and we'll get to it in a bit. But Evan, congrats to the Islanders for getting this pick. And I know it's early, and Evan doesn't know I'm doing this, but if you're the new GM, because there is a vacancy, and Evan got the call, right, from Long Island, and they say, Evan, we need you to draft someone. Who are you picking right now as of this moment today for the Islanders to draft?
Okay, so you're pulling this out quickly, are you? So heads up, I will be announcing on our social media and stuff. I've been called to a roundtable to offer my first round 32 picks. I will be letting you guys know when that's up. This is not, you are talking about a mock. However, this is the difficulty. I think they need to go with Michael Misa. They need the center. I know you guys say, oh, they got Barzal. Yes, but I'm telling you, he's different, and he's a goal scorer, and he will be a goal scorer. He was an exceptional player. He's always had the growth curve leading up. But I still have the feeling that they're going to go with Matthew Schaefer. I think that will be – there is a lot of talk around James Higgins because he's a New York Islander, but he is smaller, and he plays, of course, with Cole Iserman, who actually they have played together this past year and is a New York Islander as well. But I just don't see them going with Higgins unless they can pull something off at the draft. So I'm going to go with Schaefer as their number one pick.
Okay, and you know that the Islanders had a hard time scoring this year. You know, they went out and got Duclair. That didn't work out. They've tried to bolster that front offense, you know, but they traded away Brock Nelson to the Colorado Avalanche. They're out now, so I don't know if he'll return or re-sign a smaller deal to stay in Colorado. But you're going to need goal scoring, whether it's from your wingers or centers, and you need more, right? Your defense and your back end is good. Patrick Roy can get that defense in play, provided he stays behind the bench. But I really believe that team needs a little bit more. So it'll be interesting to see. Remember that Bo Horvat had 28 goals this year for the team, and Anders Lee had 29. So very few of their players even cracked 30 goals this year, right? So do you think that they may not go for the defenseman? They might go for the offense, centerman? It's hard to say because I don't know who the GM is. And oftentimes you can get a sense of the pick when you know who the GM is. And I have a feeling that if Lou Lamoriello was still in charge, I think he'd go for the defenseman. I think he covets the defenseman, and I think he's always gone that way. I mean, he went with Noah Dawson, and he really believed in that. And
if it was Holland, I think the same would go true.
Right. So
I think he'll take
if it's a Rob Blake pick, then he'd be more likely to go with an offensive threat or a center. If it's Marc Bergevin, you know how much he covets centers. Granted, that was something that Montreal needed for the longest time when he was there. So it'll be interesting to see. We will have it here for you guys come the draft when we have the lottery picks happening. So make sure you tune into that. Now,
3-hour show, man. Get ready. Last year was 2.5 hours. I stayed on until all my picks, my top 15, were all actually.
I will be traveling during that time, I think, but we'll see. I think, or I may be back at that point. So it should be interesting. Great stuff. Now, speaking of another team that was recently eliminated from the playoffs, and also has a prospect that had some decisions to make, Isaac Howard. It sounds like he won't be signing with Tampa Bay. And now there's news that former captain Alex Gagne won't be signing with the Lightning either and will become a U of A. So what are the chances that Mr. Howard gets traded at the trade deadline to a contending team where he potentially believes he'll have a better opportunity to play in the top six?
So here's the problem that they're going to have. So Isaac Howard, they already have expected they're not getting him back. Because he won the Hobie Baker, the timing of everything, he has right to become a UFA. They can trade for his rights. The only way I see them trading for his rights, because everyone's eligible, is if they're allowed to speak to him ahead of time. It's the only way I can see that happening. And so interesting, there was a lot of comments. You'll have to go back to some of our previous shows to find out about some of that stuff. But let me just talk to you guys about the University of New Hampshire captain, Alex Gagne, like you said. So he will become a UFA. Now watch this. He says, this is his quote, "They went in a different direction and we thought something else was going to happen," which at the end of the day, it's just business. This is now how many prospects? Something is happening. And this makes me start thinking, could there be a switch soon at the GM role? So I'm going to tell you guys, keep your ears open for a possible change in the GM atmosphere. If it doesn't happen, this is what I will predict. If it doesn't happen in the next week, because there's so many GMs available potentially, if it doesn't happen in the next week, we won't be a change till next year. But if they're going to make a change before the season, they got to do it while the iron's hot. There's just too many guys available, and all the best may be gone by that period of time. So interesting, though. This is a really sad day for both you and I think, had them in the finals, back to the Stanley Cup. I think some of the best guys that are out there in the daily face-off, Craig Button, Bob McKenzie, a ton of people really thought this was the year, and good old Florida just went at them.
100%. And I believe that there will be changes coming to Tampa Bay, given that they've been out of the first round in the last few years. Granted, their top players haven't performed to the elite level, including Kucherov and Vasilevsky. I don't know if that's because they're tired or if there's something else on beyond what's been happening. But they have a lot of miles, including players like Ryan McDonough, who's been there for a very long time. He's played several games. So the team did well during the regular season, but you need postseason success. So we'll keep you posted when there are changes made, or if there are changes made. So thank you, Zilstra, for tuning in. Yo. We appreciate you having in. I did want to announce that Utah released finally officially their name. They will be the Mammoth. They released the jerseys. They look nice, although people, there's been all kinds of responses online on X. Granted, I like it. They could definitely get creative with this. And we'll see what it is. There was a cool video PR released
really good
for the presentation. Looks great. Good job. All you're going to get is continually better reception from the fan base, because it was a successful year for Utah. Granted, they didn't make the playoffs. And I know that we talked about Tampa Bay a little bit, but there was also rumblings about John Cooper potentially going to Utah if, for whatever reason, he was done with the Lightning. Now, I'm not saying he is. He's gotten the full faith from the Tampa Bay organization. But I believe if he were to step away for whatever reason, mutually part ways like Mike Sullivan did, which we'll get to in a sec, it's possible he may go to Utah. And that team, who wouldn't want John Cooper as your head coach, right? The guy has been successful at every level, so good for him. You had a thought.
Let's just say if Cooper became available, Utah, he would become the next highest paid coach. I know that's probably where we should go next, but I'm just saying if he should right now, we don't know. And be careful when you're kind of looking at the Tampa Bay Lightning. They had a lot of ongoing injuries. We'll talk about that next week. Some of the injuries these teams are releasing after their release. Fans are like, oh, yeah, good excuse. And guys, they don't tell you during the playoffs. Otherwise, everyone's going to target them. They have to wait till it's done and it's released. Believe me, if they say they're hurt bad, they're hurt bad. If they broke an ankle, they broke an ankle. If they tore a meniscus, they tore a meniscus. And they had a lot of injuries happening that no one knew about during that period.
100%. And so you want to get into the Rangers and what's going on with Mike Sullivan now?
Let's do it. So as you guys know, last week, not trying to be first or anything like that, but We kind of were. We were on top of this on this one. We don't always. It depends on contacts and who you know. So we talked early. The day that Sullivan was gone, that night, we talked about the most likely landing spot was the New York Rangers. The second day, it was announced, and then just before that was announced, we talked about how he will be the highest paid coach in the NHL. It could be up to as much as $7 million. So he came in at 6.25. We called it 6 days before the release right here at Two Guys in Hockey Talk. That's one I'm proud on. And it looks like we have some good people in the Rangers organization that are giving us a little extra information ahead of time. So we love you guys. Thanks for shooting that one out to us. It's just fun to be in the race, to be able to find all the different stuff going on. I got to be honest. I feel like a kid in the candy store. Hey, what's the latest? What's going on here? You know, so, and can I just say this quickly? Like, not on the Rangers, but when it comes to people being upset about who says what, so the Two Mutts group got a bunch of haters and death threats and people coming to the door and stuff. Now, they claim to be Oilers fans. I'm going to say I don't believe they are. Too often, another group, they do this in politics too. They pretend to be the other side and then they come in. But anyway, they uttered death threats and stuff, and they're all, who cares what someone releases or says? It's all fun. This is like the days of our lives of the hockey world. Just relax. It's reality show. Okay. Anyway, I'm done on that piece. Anything you wanted to cover on the Rangers before we move on?
No, I think they're going to try to get back into the playoffs and try to be competitive, and less noise in that organization, both in and out, will be beneficial. Go ahead.
One thing, if I can just mention, keep your ears open. Now that Sullivan's in there, we're going to see, is he a Lafreniere fan or not? Because right now, very possible. 2 possible changes. Keep your ears open. Lafreniere or Panarin? Will they keep them both? Will one be gone? Lafreniere, if they can find a match for that and unload that contract, I think he just needs a new landing spot, and continue to consider, if it's a good partnership, could it be a team like, not saying it is, the Calgary Flames? Just saying.
It'd be interesting. The one contract to keep an eye on there is Keandre Miller, because his bridge deal is coming up, so he's going to be an RFA this summer. So watch him potentially get paid a little bit. He's going to get at least a boost. So we'll keep an eye on that. Speaking of one of the rivals for the New York Rangers, it's the New Jersey Devils, and it sounds like Jesper Bratt had successful shoulder surgery. Try saying that 3 times fast. And he's also expected to be back for a camp. So that's good news. I know the team was plagued with injuries. That is why they fell to the Carolina Hurricanes. They just couldn't keep up with the offense and the defense that Carolina has, and comes at you. But good for them. And getting into some other teams that have been eliminated, St. Louis, another player, Dylan Holloway, he underwent surgery. It wasn't identified what it was, but it was successful, and he is expected to be returned to 2025-26 camp. However, it sounds like Doug Armstrong has alerted everyone in the St. Louis organization that Torrey Krug isn't expected to play again due to that ankle injury that won't allow him to play in one of the best leagues in the world. This could be it for him, unfortunately. Now, never say never. Things could always change. We just saw what Landeskog was able to get through and go through and come back and be effective.
And even Kane, right? Even Kane coming back from how many different surgeries and things that he's dealt with in the last year and a half.
Yeah. And so you definitely feel for him. We wish him all the best, and hopefully quick recovery with whatever he's dealing with, and that even beyond hockey, he's able to have a good life, a good quality of life, both physically and mentally, because that could definitely be draining on someone. Great player, intense player, really played on the edge, physical, mean. You'd love to have him on your team. Speaking of young defensemen in the league, we know that the Calder nominees have been announced. But what was surprising is that Lane Hutson, Evan, was 5th in Norris voting. So even though he had won or been nominated for the Calder, which I think he's going to win. I know Dustin Wolf and Celebrini were the other two. I really feel Hutson really, came out of nowhere. Quite a few points. He was power playing that, quarterback or quarterbacking that power play. on the first line. You know, Martin St. Louis really trusted this kid, and your thoughts on him getting that many Norris votes, given some of the talent in the NHL.
I'm not sure. I feel like there's a little bit of a hype on this as far as the over, like what he meant. If it was the best defenseman to their team, like most valuable defenseman to their team, there's just so many more. Like they're saying there's only 4 more better based on the voting system. I think it's a bit of a what have you done for me recently kind of situation here. I think he is phenomenal. I think he's great. He is potentially, you know, like a Quinn or a Makar potential. And I say that because even Makar, after he had a great playoff into the next year, I wasn't sure if he could pull it off. He's got 1 full year, Hudson. If he can pull this off and come out with at least 60-point season next year again, then I'll believe he's the offensive defenseman that everyone's raving about. But I kind of feel like this was just kind of a feel-good moment that they voted for him for 5th. What's your thoughts?
I agree. I mean, he was exciting. He was lights out. He really brought a lot to the league. But I really believe that, you know, he needs to prove it again. It was a pretty stacked Montreal team that was able to push to the playoffs, you know, and he had a lot of opportunity to grow and really fit in that role. Can he follow it up? It'll be interesting to see. It's interesting 5th because you think about all the defensemen in the league that, you know, beyond the top 3, which is Hughes, Makar, and Werenski, who got nominated. Who else could you really remove? You know, you have Jacob Slavin in Carolina, who's had an unreal season. Chris Tanev for Toronto, who's played unreal, right? Like Heiskanen before he went down, elite defenseman, right? Some people may scoff at this, but Evan Bouchard, you know, for all his lapses, he still produces, right? He's still able to be effective. So who do you really remove in that situation? And I wanted to get your quick thoughts, Evan, right now. And again, I'm putting Evan on the spot. If you were to vote right now for the Norris, is it Werenski, is it Makar, or is it Hughes?
I think this year I go with Werenski. I think that what they were able to do, I think playing under the enormous pressure of the death of Gaudreau, the fact that they made a run for they get in. Normally I wouldn't. But he amazed me what he's doing at this stage and his defensive game. Should he be in the playoffs right now, he would have been like literally a shutdown defenseman, not just a guy who provides the offense. And he was able to do quite a bit of that. So believe it or not, I'm not a pro Werenski fan, but I would actually take him this year. But I still think Makar is the best defenseman in the NHL.
Agreed. I would go the same way. I think the slight edge goes to Werenski, even though they didn't make the postseason. I like what Quinn Hughes did in Vancouver, but that whole team faltered. He was still very effective. You know, it's just hard, and we'll see what happens with the coaching carousel. But speaking of the coaching carousel, you've heard a few names out of Seattle that they're considering for. What did you want to bring to us about that?
So the Kraken, again, they're really hard to get information from. Francis has done a very good job. By the way, we didn't mention how Jason Botterill was brought in to do the replacing of Ron Francis. So interesting. I'm not sure if he's the best fit, but let's face it, Francis is still pulling and setting the culture there. One of the things that for the Kraken, okay, so Peter Lavalleyette's name is out there, and that is one of the main landing places. But Jay Woodcroft and Todd Nelson names are out there also. Know that Woodcroft has an interview or already had his interview. Heard that Nelson was getting an interview. Now, if you guys remember, he's only got 1 season so far, Todd Nelson. Potentially, Todd Nelson could also be getting an interview with Vancouver. Haven't mentioned that yet. Now, there are a couple others. I don't know the names that are they have a long list, but I believe Lavalleyette is probably the number 1 choice right now at this point in time.
Interesting. So we'll see what happens out of there. And their competitors and potential rivals up north in the Western Pacific, Evan, Vancouver. You're hearing something about Tom Willander.
Yeah. So Tom, Tom Willander, it is Willander. So in his case, you guys remember we talked about he's coming out of NCAA. He wanted to burn a year, and that was a part of the contract debate. They were trying to save money. Remember, they were going to pay all this money to talk it. Yet he turned down the deal. It's been a mess. They don't have a practice facility. If anyone needs a break right now, it's the Vancouver Canucks. Now, having said that, though, he did not want them to burn a year. It had nothing to do with the contract. It's totally something. No one knows a lot about what's going on, other than it sounds like it's simply he wanted the maximum in all the bonuses, which is not a lot of money on the top end because you have to perform and play really well. So he went back to Sweden, okay? But he is not close, Canucks fans, to actually signing a deal with Vancouver, which tells me how long will the ownership allow what's going on? They need to make a culture change. Does that mean just Rutherford, keep Alvin, or do they move on from this because they're partners in the crime? I believe this is Rutherford's team right now, and that might be the best fix. Change your president of hockey operations and give it a year, and then see if you continue with the coach or you move from there. But right now, Pavel, this is a mess. What would you do to change the culture?
I mean, you got to stabilize the outside noise. Jim Rutherford didn't do himself any favors with the pressers that he's had. I mean, it's not doing anybody any good. I know he's known well and considered pretty elite around the league, given his history with Pittsburgh, with Carolina, things like that. But I really think they need to, similar to where was it? There was another place with a lot of noise, and it's just like, you know what, tone it down, like get it all out. You don't need this right now.
New York?
Clear things out. Yeah, New York. Yeah, essentially, like just tone it down. Focus on playing game. You have a good decor. Work on making sure that Demko is healthy because you have Lankinen locked up as well. So you have your tandem. Work on trying to appeal to Quinn Hughes to see what you can do to keep him because he's done in a year and a half time. And you want to be able to keep him. If he doesn't want to go play for your organization, he's going to want to go play with his brothers, right?
Yeah.
That potentially could be something on the horizon that they have to deal with. And then where are you as an organization when you lose one of the best franchise record defensemen in the history of the game? And he already beat some of the records that Alex Edler had there, and he's so young, what is he, 26, 27? Like the guy is a stud. You want to make sure he's great as a captain. You got to get Petey going. How is that going to work? And I think whatever it takes, bolster up that front line. Now you're potentially losing what's his name? The name escapes me. Who's not being re-signed, and they drafted him. Brock Nelson.
Besner.
Brock Besner. See,
UFA. Yep.
So you're losing him. That's a 30-goal scorer right there. Who are you replacing him with, right? Like I find that Vancouver really needs to figure out what their identity is, and once you have that identity, instill it into your culture and come back strong. You can always start from zero come the next season.
So I you know what I would do, Pavel, is I would go in and whatever the price is, you sign Quinn Hughes, right? You make it happen, and then run stuff through him. Just say, let me give you, if you were the GM, give me some ideas of your thought process because you want to please him. You don't want to lose a top 3 defenseman in the league. They don't come along more than every 25 years. So in this case, in fact, he'll probably go down as the best defenseman to ever play, frankly, for the Vancouver Canucks. So in this case, if you can't, then you look at a team like the Devils, and can you pull Hughes or Heischer or some other couple people out of there in order, and you can get the bank. You can load up the bank. You're going to get almost anybody out of there if you do that, right? So.
Yeah, so that brings it to the end of our news around the NHL. We will get to the playoffs in a bit here, but we've got some news around the rink.
If you're a fan of hard-hitting, exciting hockey, catch the Kalkaska Battlers.
Around the Rink
is brought to you by the Kalkaska Battlers. Let them be your local hockey heroes.
Now, as you guys know here, we talk all things hockey, everything, including beyond the NHL, the KHL, AHL, all international hockey. And there's a lot going on even right now, which is exciting to talk. And both Evan and I are going to get into a few things. But the first thing I want to kind of talk about is the World's Men's Hockey Championship. It sounds like Marc-Andre Fleury will join Sidney Crosby and Nathan MacKinnon for the IIHF World Championship. As of May 7th today, it was announced. This includes quite a few elite players, such as Mike Matheson, Fleury, Sidney Crosby, and some other players. And it's going to be selected by Kyle Dubas, the Pittsburgh GM, as well as Ryan Getzlaff, who is the player relations advisor, and senior vice president Scott Salmon, with an input selection committee from Dennis Bonvie, Greg Campbell, Andrew Cogliano, and Jason Spezza. Your quick thoughts on this, Evan?
Yeah, so let me just walk you guys through you guys to think of this lineup. So starting, right away, everything's getting going for the hockey playoffs out there, okay? So watch on TSN. They're going to cover all 64 games. The games can be as early as 4:20 to 4:30 in the morning. Maybe you can get lucky and pick one at 6:30 in the morning. But May 10th, Canada will open up against Slovenia. Okay, that is a 6:20 Eastern. That means 4:20. You got to get up. So maybe you'll record it. The streams I don't like on TSN, so I actually get up early. I just get my coffee going, have it all ready to go. I want you to think about right now, Team Canada. So Team Canada has, and by the way, Macklin Celebrini is lighting up the warm-up games right now. Just came out yesterday here of a 4-point game, a goal and 3 assists. And right now he's also working on face-offs and stuff, and he's been mentoring, if you go on X and a few places, with Sidney Crosby. So you got Celebrini, Sidney Crosby, you got Will Coulier, you got Tyson Forster, Barrett Hayden, Bo Horvat from the Islanders, Fantilli, and Johnson from the Jackets. You got Travis Konechny. You got Ryan O'Reilly. These are some good guys and a lot of experience. Defensemen, Noah Dobson, Mike Matheson, as you mentioned, Brandon Montour from Seattle, Travis Sanheim, who was in the Four Nations and who should have been at the Four Nations, Calgary Flames, Mackenzie Weegar, and then, of course, Riker Evans, who is a Seattle pick that just got into a few games. They got Dylan Garland and Andre. Now, they still have room for 7 more players. So if there's an early elimination of some teams with Canadians, they have 7 more spots. They could go into the early part of the second round and take them 3-4 games in, and they still have room for 1 more goalie. So you think through that. USA Hockey, because we have a lot of people that are coming, 45 to 55% every show, Americans coming in or catching through their servers. At least we know you're coming out of America. Maddie, this is not as loaded, but they take a lot of players younger. Maddie Beniers, Logan Cooley, Connor Garland, Cutter Gauthier. By the way, Isaac Howard is playing for USA. You want to check him out. Clayton Keller with the Coyotes. Then they got Frank Nazar, who's the new guy for the Blackhawks. Tage Thompson of the Sabres. And then they have a few other guys that I could mention. You guys probably wouldn't remember. On defense, Zeke Buem. Okay. Cole Hudson, who is out of the Boston University, the other Hudson. Michael Kesselring, Andrew Peak, Brady, was it Sky or Skay? How do you say his name out of Carolina?
Brady Shea.
Shea, yeah. And Alex Vlasic out of Chicago. They still have room for another goaltender and about 5-6 more players as well. This will be must-see. So if your team is not playing in the playoffs, this could be something. Find your country and go support them. You can follow it on TSN or find it up on other apps. So, guys, this is an exciting tournament. I'm excited to be able to watch both America and the Canadian team throughout this entire process.
100%. So it'll be exciting hockey. We'll do our best to report on it as things emerge and any storylines that happen. Now, speaking of Connor Bedard and his former team, the Regina Pats, sounds like they just landed a jackpot in the WHL Draft. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so guys, they just landed 2 players. two key players. We're going to talk about, I don't want to spend too much time because we still want to talk playoffs here tonight. They just landed Maddox and I think it's Poi or Poo. He's the third overall. There was trades that happened. We're going to go into detail next week as we talk about the future for the Regina Pats and what potentially could be, because the future watch will include Maddox. In fact, one of our regulars who loves the WHL and has been a guest on their show, he did some follow-up and actually wrote a little bit on Maddox for us. So, Jordan, I will be actually throwing your stuff out, and we will talk about that. Right now, the WHL is continuing to roll out players. So, I guess right now you can listen to anything Jordan says because it apparently is a decade of the WHL, even though everybody thinks it's one of the weakest leagues in the world. Oh, and saying that, the WHL final right now was coming up, or is going to be McKenna with so he's got who is it? Westblot right now, Ryder Ritchie. The three of them have been riding gunshot together, just totally dominating everything for the Medicine Hat Tigers. Go follow on Victory Plus. It's a free app that you guys can download. Go check it out. So I haven't gone in, haven't checked out. It started at 7:00 tonight, the first game. I'm going to go in and check as soon as we get off of here so I can go follow the full game. But they're taking on the powerhouse, the Spokane Chiefs, and the Chiefs are represented by none other than Seattle's Berkeley Catton and Washington Capitals' Andrew Crystal, who set records this year. So this should be an exciting series.
That will be fun to watch. So make sure you guys tune in if you're looking for some good quality hockey. And speaking of other championships, the U18 Men's World Championship is happening soon, and Canada has competed in Frisco, Texas, and they will be facing the Czech Republic. Or they did Czech Republic.
Yeah, they won it.
They won. So, that was exciting hockey to watch. And in other news, the Saginaw Spirit and the USA trade context. I know that there's been a lot of talk about the tariffs happening in the U.S. We're not a political podcast, but what we like to talk about is that in Michigan, the OHL Saginaw Spirit has many Canadian team players, and there are some potential impacts, both financial and others, from the U.S.-Canada trade threats, including fan and community dynamics, player environment, long-term trade risks, and some economic concerns, given everything. Quick thoughts on that?
Well, and just remember, guys, Michigan, right, is a hub for auto manufacturing. We've heard all the news and political on the tariffs. This will affect economically the team. They've already been dealing with stuff over the last months. They've tried to keep everything as low key as possible to not talk about what their budgets are moving forward. There are some concerns in Saginaw. What's going to happen moving forward? As you know, last year they won the Memorial Cup. They also boast the possible 1, 2, or 3 overall pick, Michael Misa, who was an exceptional player that they got in the OHL draft. So there's a lot here. Most of the fan base, are Canadians. They are Canadians, and so that makes a big difference here when you're dealing with all this stuff. But they maintain their focus, which I'm proud of them, on hockey over actually politics, and they didn't start worrying everybody around it. But get ready to hear some news. I'm hoping that they can find a way to make this work. But this also means, so Musqueam and Youngstown, who were looking at coming into the Canadian hockey OHL, and there's some battles going on in the legal, I expect a delay on this right now while they figure out what's really happening on the tariff fronts and how the impacts are going to happen overall with the OHL.
And that's been Around the Rink.
If you're a fan of hard-hitting, exciting hockey, catch the Kalkaska Battlers.
Around the Rink
is brought to you by the Kalkaska Battlers. Let them be your local hockey heroes.
All right, guys, we're in the final stretch of our show, so we're going to get into some playoff discussions because there's been a lot going on with the final 8 teams happening. Now, one game starting tonight that hasn't yet started because of the Game 7 antics was the Winnipeg Jets and the Dallas Stars. It sounds like Jason Robertson will be in the lineup. I'm not too sure if both Logan Stankoven and Mike Shafley will be in for Winnipeg. I just got to say, Evan, that game on Sunday night between Winnipeg and St. Louis, wild, just wild. Props to Cole Perfetti for scoring that goal with 1.6 seconds left. St. Louis, they kind of blew the lead. Good for Hellebuck finally for standing tall, although, there were some questionable plays on the road when he played. Your quick thoughts on that series and how it ended and what to expect from Winnipeg versus Dallas.
3 minutes and 3 seconds left in the game or somewhere around there, and they decided to shut it off down 3-1. I have a friend that sends me a note, what a game. And I'm like, oh, they don't like Winnipeg? And they're thinking, that's what I thought. And then they're like, this is crazy overtime. And I'm like, what? Went back. If you guys go back to my rankings, I talked about Cole Perfetti. This guy is a winner. This guy is in he's the kind of a player that Dale Hawerchuk would have been proud of. Definitely. He's like a Scheifele player. He fits this team like a snug sweater at Christmas, man. So I am telling you that I'm excited. Tonight's game should be pretty well watched. You have 3 Canadian teams in the final 8 now. 3. Yeah. And you only have 7 in the league. So this year, all you guys are saying, oh, Bettman's against Canadian teams. He wouldn't given a chance to have 3 teams in this round. That's just malarkey. It's just bull crap. You guys got to get away from that. There is 3 teams, and now my predictions have changed, Pawel. Now that I've seen the first round, obviously, both you and I both came out of that round 5-3. 5 of our teams won, 3 of our teams lost. By the way, there was someone from one of the mainstream media came. Was it Nick?
PK Subban.
Was it Subban or Nick Kipper?
No. Subban picked all the teams.
2 and 6. 2 and 6. He went.
He was 0-8. He picked all the teams. Yeah.
No, I think you got it wrong. That's not who I was thinking of. They went 2 and 6. So, but okay, I'll go look that up. Anyway, yeah, come on. What are you talking about? So Winnipeg, man, love it. I do have one condition I'd like to see. Can they please allow the Winnipeg Jets to play in their away whites back at home like the 80s so the whiteout would really be a whiteout?
That would be fun. I think it was Subban who had what's it called? All the ones that were pretty much. He picked Ottawa. He picked the Canadians. He picked the Devils. He picked the Kings. He picked the Wild. And he picked Avalanche. And I think he picked St. Louis. So I think that was the people were harping on him for his analysis. So it'll be interesting to see. Now, before we get to the other series, just a quick thought on Dallas and Colorado. Given the historic third period for Mikko Rantanen, who came out and slaughtered his old teammates with a hat trick, and just the elevation of the game, and the post comments by Nathan McKinnon saying they were missing their best defenseman and best forward. Like, how do you respond to that, right? I mean, devastating for Colorado. You don't know what you're going to do, but your thoughts on Mikko Rantanen finally finding the groove with Dallas. And again, that team is the team to beat in the East or the West.
I'm excited for Rantanen. I felt like he got a really bad shift. No one understands emotionally and psychologically what happens. He was upset with Colorado. Again, he wasn't saying, I want 14 million. You guys get that out of your heads. That's false narrative. He was willing to take less. In fact, under 12. So get that out of your head. He was upset. He affected his play with the Canes. He really didn't want to play there. He didn't know where he wanted to go, and it took him a while to kind of work his head around that. And he's now settled in, found his place, and I think he took it back to his old bosses. Nothing to do with the team. It's the bosses, the ones that moved him on. And, to do what he did, to show everyone that they're wrong, that he is a top performer, and he doesn't need McKinnon, I think is wonderful. But can I just say that I'm a little disappointed in McKinnon? We don't need to hear about who you're missing. It's loser's lament then, right? It's like, come on.
So we're going to have an exciting series, but another series that has been going on quite a bit, and with the other Canadian team that you noted, is the Toronto Maple Leafs and Florida Panthers. Now, for those of you who are tuning in right now, Toronto has taken a stronghold on the series 2-0. They have won 4-3. It's been an exciting series. It hasn't been without its drama. And I got to say, Evan, the biggest storyline coming out of it is Anthony Stolarz going to the hospital with kind of the bump / elbow / hit, whatever you want to call it, from Sam Bennett towards Stolarz after he had taken the puck to the face from Sam Reinhart from that slap shot. Now, he's gone to the hospital. He's concussed. He talked about how he's doing okay. He's recovering. Bennett had a presser today. He didn't have one yesterday or 2 days ago when the game happened. There's been a lot of hoo-ha about what's going on. Department of Player Safety didn't bring anything down. Do you agree with everything that happened there? Was it a call? Was it not a call? Was it a suspension? Was it not a suspension? And your quick thoughts on it.
I know Maple Leafs fans, I get you're upset. You've just lost your number one goalie, the one that you've been relying on. But it's easy to see perspective when you're angry. This situation, I blame on the NHL because their concussion protocols. I've been going through, you can follow me on X at REV if you want to see some of my takes, especially around goaltenders. I've even mentioned when people say, oh, you don't get a concussion from a puck to the face. You guys know nothing about playing the game. You've either played ball hockey or beer league only as a goalie or never played as a goalie and thought you actually knew what you were talking about. Your bell gets rung, you get mini concussions. They're not as severe, but it's like a lot in boxing. You take a hit, you take a hit. It's the mini hits that actually usually cause the bigger problem. It's continuing going over. If we brought last year, we had Daniel Carcella on, and he talked about all the hits that he dealt with in fights and understanding that puck it literally knocked and his helmet does not come off. He's not like some of those other guys. He didn't shake it. It literally popped the straps, came down, and you could see. And then listen to Nowinski. Chris Nowinski is a doctor, okay, that they use. And he literally talks about the shake, which means you shake your head when you're seeing stars. That is a concussion. Immediately, you do the protocol, you get them out. Do I think that he had an elbow to the head? No, I don't. I think he rubbed him into the head. Do I think that was purposeful? I don't know. It looked like he kept his elbow in there, but he had his elbow tucked into him. So I would call it, like some others have, like Craig Button, a rub. He rubbed hard into him, but the defenseman did not help the play any. There was no room to pull away, and he was staying in tight. I don't think that was the reason for the concussion. I do think there should have been a penalty still in the play, though. But I don't think it's fine. I don't think it's a suspension, and I don't think that's the concussion. I think that he should have been taken out, and that only added to it.
I think the problem is that there's been inconsistent reffing calls in the NHL playoffs, let alone the regular season. And so fans really want a clear and concise answer as to what it is.
True.
Last night, if people were watching the Edmonton Vegas series, and you can what's it called? Watch it yourself and tune in to see what happens there. We'll talk about the series in just a bit. But Connor Brown was going into the net and gets pushed in. I believe it was by Howden or Haig, one of the two players. Goes into Hill. None worse for wear. There was contact for sure. It was incidental. It was accidental essentially. But Brown gets a penalty, whether you agree or not. And I think the problem is when you go from one series and you say you get a penalty and then another you don't, that's where I believe is a problem. And I do believe you need to protect your goalies.
That's a good point.
It's like you need to protect the players, so you need to be consistent.
How do you protect a goalie when your defenseman, the defenseman, is pushing the guy into your goalie? It's just
that was the situation with Bennett. Bennett was not.
No, exactly. But I'm just saying that I think a lot of calls are on. Now, Bennett was tight in there on the outside edge. When a goalie comes out further on that edge, which was very controversial, where Stolarz was out on that line, right? When you're out further, you're taking the chance to put yourself into that position. Now, coming over when you were looking at like a situation like Brown. Folks, if you watched even the Sportsnet feed, and Jake Allen is your special guest, and he's talking about when he's faced Aiden Hill on the other end of the rink, and he sees he is a big man. He's not a thin fella. He's a big, and he looks big. How did he get knocked flying? Literally knocked flying backwards, like he flopped, just like he was a dead chicken. I'm sorry, that was an embellishment to me. Do I care they got a penalty on it? I don't know. And then when you talk about officiating earlier in that game, you also have nobody calls a penalty on the play. They see the guy down. They're worried about him. Now they go back. I have never saw that. I'd like, if you guys know another time when there's no penalty called and then a guy's down, they call a play dead to check on him. And then they go to video review and they say, oh, did anybody see that? Well, you could have called it. If you actually saw it, you could have called it. I don't really care about in the game. I just care about the officiating. And so, like, there should have been, I think, a penalty on that play with Bennett. There shouldn't have been one on those two plays. But I also saw Nurse cross-checking and interfering. Quite obvious. They don't call him on the play. There's no consistency. We talk about this every week, all throughout the year. I feel like I'm sick of it, but I can't stop talking about it because it's getting so annoying.
Fix it and they want us to gamble on the games. They got to be able to make a clear and concise decision. And let's not forget, Evan, if you recall, Matthias Ekholm 2 years ago when the Oilers played the Kings, and we'll get into that series just right after this. He got high stick cut, same place that Thomas Hertl just got cut, and there was no call for at all, let alone a 5-minute call to review the play. So, at the end of the day, we are human. There are going to be errors made, but refs need to be better about consistently being the same. And I got to be honest, Evan, I know they change up refs. You got to keep the same refs for every game. I know fans may not like to hear it. You have to have the same refs for every game so that you set the standard and that every round gets those refs.
Would you have the same refs and linesmen other than injury to the entire series?
Other than injury, you keep the same guys. Maybe you keep one or two in the backup in your dressing room watching from up above, whatever, from the situation room. But you keep them there the whole time for the whole series. Don't change them up. This whole these guys get Wes McCauley and these guys get this one. No, I think you got to keep the same ones consistently. But speaking of the series, Edmonton comes back and wins after a 2-0 deficit. Your quick thoughts on game one between the Oilers and the Vegas Golden Knights?
It was a weird game. The Oilers were in control, but it seemed like the Vegas Golden Knights, while they were being dominated, were happy just to box out the Oilers. They took a different method in their zone defense they weren't trying to they just wanted to be strong on the forecheck and box you out and wait for your opportunities. I think Edmonton fans, I saw them immediately, how easy this is and how all that. Fans need to be careful. Their emotions are going to go exactly. They've been down often, and now that you're up, don't be like the other teams and then put all your hopes. Pietrangelo was not in this game yet.
Dorothea
wasn't exactly. Either. So when you got some big boys, I mean, they're a big team already. I do believe if the depth continues for the Edmonton Oilers, I did not see them getting better as the playoffs going on. I thought after those first going in, I was worried about their defense. Then after the first two games, I was like, oh no. Now looking, I'm readjusting because Colorado didn't even make it. I had Edmonton and Colorado. I believe the Oilers could be the team once again to go back to the Cup final. I do believe that
Dallas
they have
has something to say about that, but I agree. One thing I will say, because Dallas is still, like I said, they'll have Robertson, but they don't have Heiskanen, and they're a deep team as well. The one thing that I will give Edmonton credit for is none other than John Klingberg. You are out with Matthias Ekholm, and we remember what happened with John Klingberg last year in Toronto and the struggles he had, and then having to get hip surgery. It seems like he's really adjusted. And you'll recall Mr. Jesse Puljujärvi also had similar hip surgery and has had some success returning back. Now he plays for the Florida Panthers organization. He's out of the lineup in terms of not playing for the club right now. He's on the farm team, but he has played a few games and, he could be called up if need be. That being said, when you have good, successful surgery and you feel good and you can move your hips, you're great. And Hans, Love the Jersey goalies. Go, yeah, Hans is pretty much celebrating for the Leafs winning tonight. So good on them.
So,
and let me remind Edmonton
I,
fans, before you finish your thought,
yeah.
let me remind Edmonton fans, LA was up 2-0, and the whole world of hockey, beyond a few people, including me, thought, hey, and I'm going to say me because I believed in the Oilers beating LA, is that they said, oh, Edmonton's got a stronghold on Edmonton.
Yeah.
They are not coming back from this. So be careful what you wish for. Take it game by game. It isn't over until it's over. Look at how Toronto fans reacted when Ottawa won 2 games in a row. There was panic in the fandom, not in the dressing room, in the fandom. Go ahead.
So my last statement, and then we better both take our last thoughts or throw out whatever we have in a minute or two.
We're going to get to the Carolina, Washington. We'll finish off with that.
Oh, okay. I really have nothing on that other than it's been just a fun series. So I just don't want to take forever and put all of our fans. We still have a lot of other info that won't be timely for next week that I want to cover. So you give your thoughts on that, and then we'll finish that. I do want to say I see Toronto now. I talked about it last week. They need to break the curse. I believe it's happened. I'm seeing the core four, per se, the big four. They're doing what they need to do. They're getting themselves in place. The team looks good. Their goaltending, Woll, I wasn't worried about him coming in. Stolarz actually surprised me. I will now go out and predict Edmonton, Toronto, Stanley Cup final, the nightmare of Gary Bettman. Look out. All right, you want to talk about the last series quickly? I'll throw
I've enjoyed Carolina, Washington. So Carolina goes up 1-0 in overtime. Although one of the weirdest things you saw, and we know Tom Wilson is a pest, is him taking out Sebastian Aho's mouth guard and then skating away with it, only to have him take it, give it back to the official. Kind of gross. I understand you throw some water on it, but come on, you don't know where that glove has been. Kind of weird. Just disgusting.
So I will say this. I think Washington. I got to be honest with you. I got through half of it. I watched probably about 45, 50 minutes, and then I was getting kind of tired. Like honestly, no. Washington was playing a very boring game. I didn't like what I was seeing. I felt like, hey, it looks excellent when you're watching the Canes, and the Canes look like the more dominant group. But somehow Washington's done this all year. They lull you, and then bang, they hit you. But I think the Canes will come back in this series, and I still actually take the Canes in this series, which I originally had thought would be Washington.
They're up.
No, who won? The Canes won it? I didn't know I didn't catch the overtime. I left 5 minutes early. So just a heads up, everybody. If you see how much coverage we're covering, I do forget some of these pieces. In fact, I told you tonight's game, I'm anticipating because I wanted to get on and watch Winnipeg, and I was telling you it was Medicine Hat tonight. It's not. Medicine Hat starts Friday night, their WHL final. So my brain, it's getting older, but I got way too much hockey information that sometimes I do miss stuff. So but my thing was coming back, just seeing the Washington Canes game. If you're a Canes fan, it's excellent. I think if you're just watching for the fun of the game, I'm disappointed in seeing how Washington's playing, but I guess that's how they got to play. They got to play that tight kind of checking game.
I would love to see, and this is a dream scenario, if Alexander Ovechkin and the Capitals face off with Edmonton Oilers and Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and they end up beating the Caps after a wild season, only for Ovechkin to watch the next generation of the great goal scorers lift the hoist the cup. And Hans says, be a blue and orange watch party at the mosh pit if I were at least an Orange fan.
Oh my gosh.
The fan bases would lose their minds. It would shut down Canada. Shut down.
Oh, it'll be all over, man. They'd be punching and there'd be fights. There'd probably be knifing. It's crazy there already. You know how they throw tin cans? They take a can and they crunch it and they throw it in the air and let it drop on people's heads. Well, next you know, they'll be throwing knives if it's Oilers fans and Leafs fans, because let's face it, most of the people in those places are young, drunk, and not very smart.
And on that note, we are going to finish up our show. We are here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. You can follow us on Twitter /X at Evan at REV or at hockey_2. We are on YouTube. Go give us a follow. We are close to 100 subscribers. We appreciate the follows. We are on Facebook. We have a website. So go give us a follow. We've got weekly articles up there with all our former guests. We are planning for many more guests to come on the show next season, quite a few. If you want to be a guest, make sure to reach out at twoguysinhockeytalk@gmail.com. We thank our sponsors for participating with us and working with us. It makes this show grand. You guys do great work, and we love partnering with you. Evan, any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
Yeah, this is what I mentioned earlier. I just want to throw out the news because it'll be too late by then. Go check us out again on our X at hockey_2 to follow the cat, or if you're following me, Rev, you can follow me at Rev and Ev. So the Ducks are looking close to doing a Quinville deal for their new head coach. All signs are pointing. Then when you're talking about LA, the search is on. So Mike Fuda is in on that, as well as Mark Yannetti. But I do expect the possible, right now the front runner is Mark Bergevin.
Okay, and interesting. And in that note, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in again. You guys know that we are here and we love hearing from you. But as always, in the meantime and in between time,
keep your stick on the ice.
Stay safe. We love you guys.